My girlfriend's ultimate betrayal. How I found out she was cheating with 4 guys. I used to believe I had it all figured out. 3 years with Emma, and I was sure she was the one. We had that kind of love people write songs about. Late-night drives, inside jokes, stolen kisses in the rain. I was working extra hours, secretly saving up for a ring. She had her quirks, of course, everyone does. But nothing, absolutely nothing, ever made me doubt her. At least, not until her phone started buzzing at 2 a.m. First, I brushed it off. She was a project manager, always dealing with last-minute issues. "Work stuff?" she'd mumble, barely opening her eyes before flipping her phone face down. It made sense until it didn't. The messages kept coming, always at night, always followed by her sudden need to step outside. I told myself I was overthinking, but a nagging feeling had already sunk its claws into my gut. Then there were the little things. The way she started guarding her phone like a teenager hiding bad grades. The way she'd get defensive when I asked who was texting. "Why are you suddenly so paranoid?" she'd say, laughing it off, but her eyes held something else. Something I couldn't quite place. I wanted to believe her, but doubt was an itch I couldn't scratch away. Still, I tried to ignore it. Love isn't about suspicion, right? It's about trust. So I shoved that uneasy feeling deep down and focused on what mattered. Our future. I started planning a surprise trip. Something romantic to remind us both why we were together. A getaway to reset, to shake off whatever weird phase we were in. But the universe had other plans. One night, I woke up to the sound of her whispering in the bathroom. My heart pounded as I lay there, straining to make out the words. "I can't right now. He's asleep," she said, her voice low but urgent. My stomach twisted into knots. I wanted to believe there was a logical explanation, but my gut was screaming otherwise. She came back to bed like nothing happened, curling up beside me as if everything was fine. I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. I could ask her about it, but I already knew she'd have an excuse. I could ignore it, but that would make me a fool. The thought of checking her phone crossed my mind, but I wasn't that guy. Or at least I didn't think I was. Sleep never came that night. I just lay there, listening to her breathing, feeling like a stranger was in my bed. The next night it happened again, and the night after that. Each time my resolve cracked a little more, until one night when I finally snapped. At first, I convinced myself I was overthinking. Maybe she really was dealing with work emergencies. Maybe I was just letting my imagination run wild. But after weeks of the same pattern, her phone lighting up late at night, her slipping out of bed to answer, it became impossible to ignore. I started paying attention, watching her body language, the way she clutched her phone tighter than usual. Every time I tried to bring it up, she brushed me off, laughing like I was being ridiculous. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I just didn't want to admit it yet. The doubt started creeping into my everyday life. I found myself replaying conversations, searching for inconsistencies. The way she suddenly started staying out later after work. The way she'd get irritated if I reached for her phone, even just to check the time. "You're acting weird," she told me once, flipping her phone screen down. But I wasn't the one acting different. She was. Still, I held on to hope, thinking maybe it was just my insecurities messing with me. I told myself if I really loved her, I should trust her. But love isn't supposed to feel like this. One night, I finally cracked. I couldn't take the uncertainty anymore. I needed to know. She was asleep beside me, her breathing slow and steady, completely unaware of the war raging inside my head. My heart was pounding as I reached over and picked up her phone. It was locked, but I knew her passcode. She had told me months ago, back when trust wasn't even a question. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen, my conscience screaming at me to stop. But my gut was louder, and for the first time I listened. The moment I unlocked it, my stomach twisted into knots. Notifications flooded the screen, texts from unsaved numbers, names I didn't recognize. My hands shook as I scrolled through the messages, each one a fresh stab to the heart. Flirty conversations, inside jokes, plans to meet up. Some of the messages were weeks old, others sent just hours ago. And then I saw them, pictures, explicit ones, the kind you don't send if you're in a committed relationship. My entire body went cold. I wanted to stop reading, to put the phone down and pretend I hadn't seen anything, but I couldn't. And then the final blow. As I scrolled further, I saw a name that made my blood run cold. It wasn't just some random guy. It was someone I knew, someone I trusted. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it, searching for any possible explanation that didn't mean what I thought it meant. But the messages told the truth in ways words never could. My worst fear wasn't just a suspicion anymore. It was real, staring back at me from that screen. And the worst part? This was only the beginning. I put the phone down, my hands trembling, my heart hammering in my chest. Emma stirred beside me, completely unaware that in just a few short hours, everything would come crashing down. I didn't know how I was going to confront her, what I was going to say. But I knew one thing for sure. There was no coming back from this. I thought I was prepared for the worst. I wasn't. I expected to find messages with one guy, maybe some emotional cheating, something that would still hurt but make sense in my head. But what I found shattered everything. It wasn't just one guy. It wasn't even two. There were four. For different men, all with their own ongoing conversations, all completely unaware of each other. Each message thread felt like a fresh stab in the gut. I could barely process it. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a pattern. My breath was shallow as I scrolled, forcing myself to read every sickening word. The messages weren't just flirty. They were explicit, raw, filled with inside jokes that I was never part of. She was meeting up with them, sending pictures, making plans. Sometimes on nights she told me she was working late. The worst part? They were mocking me, laughing at me behind my back, treating me like the clueless idiot I apparently was. Every "I love you" she had said to me now felt like a lie. My entire relationship was a joke I didn't know I was in. Then I saw their names, and that's when the knife twisted even deeper. One of them, my best friend, Jake. The guy I had known since high school, the guy I trusted with everything. We played video games together, grabbed drinks on the weekends. He had been in my home, sat on my couch, looked me in the eyes, knowing what he was doing with my girlfriend the whole time. Another was her boss, the man she always swore was just a strict professional, who barely talked to her outside of work. Then there was our neighbor, the friendly guy next door who waved at me every morning. And finally, the one that truly broke my brain, her gay best friend. Turns out he wasn't so gay after all. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling like my body wasn't my own. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in. This wasn't just infidelity, this was calculated, planned. A lifestyle she had built while I was out there working extra hours to build a future for us. A future she had never actually wanted. I kept thinking back to all the nights she kissed me goodbye. All the "I miss you" texts she sent while probably lying in someone else's bed. How do you even begin to process something like that? I looked over at her, sleeping peacefully, like she hadn't just detonated my entire world. I wanted to wake her up right then and there, demand answers, scream, ask her why. But I knew there was no answer she could give that would make any of this hurt less. The betrayal was too big, too deep, and somehow I knew she wouldn't even be sorry. I had ignored my gut for so long, convincing myself she was the woman I thought she was. But the truth was right in front of me, and there was no unseeing it. I placed her phone back on the nightstand as carefully as I could, my heart hammering in my chest. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the sun to come up. Because when it did, I was going to confront her. And I had no idea how she was going to react. The next morning, I wasn't sure how to start. I had rehearsed it in my head 100 times while lying awake. But when she finally opened her eyes and stretched like it was just another normal day, the words caught in my throat. She had no idea her perfect little web of lies had unraveled overnight. No clue that I had seen everything. My chest felt like it was on fire, my hands still shaking from the anger boiling inside me. But I forced myself to stay calm. I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her. "Who are they?" My voice was low, steady, but she must have heard something different in it because her smile faltered. "What?" she said, blinking like she had just misheard me. I held up my phone where I had taken screenshots of everything, her messages, the pictures, the proof. "Jake, your boss, the neighbor, your gay best friend. Who are they to you, Emma?" Her face didn't turn pale. She didn't stutter, didn't panic. She just looked at me, and then she laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not an "I feel guilty" laugh. A full-blown, cruel, amused laugh. "Wow," she said, shaking her head. "Took you long enough." My stomach dropped. This wasn't shock. This wasn't regret. This was boredom. Like I was some predictable storyline she had already played out in her head. "You were never supposed to find out," she continued. stretching like she had all the time in the world. But I guess even you aren't that dumb. That was the moment I realized something. I had been in love with someone who never truly existed. I expected excuses, maybe even some fake tears, but she didn't even try. "So what now?" she asked, tilting her head, like this was some kind of game. "You gonna cry? Yell? Throw my stuff out?" Her complete lack of remorse was worse than the betrayal itself. Every part of me wanted to scream at her, to demand answers, to make her feel even a fraction of the pain she had put me through. But I knew better. She wanted a reaction. She wanted to control the situation, and I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. Instead, I stood up, my movements slow and deliberate. "Nah," I said, my voice eerily calm. "I'm just done." Her smirk faltered. I saw the briefest flicker of something in her eyes. Was it surprise? Annoyance? It didn't matter. I wasn't sticking around to figure it out. "Good luck," I said, turning toward the door. "You're gonna need it." I walked out of that room, out of that apartment, and out of the life I thought I was building. And she didn't try to stop me. She just watched me go, like I was nothing. As I stepped outside, the cold morning air hit me like a slap, but I welcomed it. It reminded me that I was still here, still breathing, still capable of starting over. I didn't know what came next. All I knew was that I wasn't looking back. I had wasted enough time on someone who had never cared. And now, for the first time in a long time, I was finally free. Or at least I thought I was. I wish I could say walking away was easy, that I felt instant relief the moment I stepped out of that apartment. But the truth is, it felt like I was floating outside of my own body, watching my entire life collapse from a distance. 3 years gone just like that. I didn't even pack all my stuff. I grabbed a duffel bag, threw in whatever I could, and left. She didn't chase after me, didn't call my name. She just let me go, like I was nothing. Maybe that was the final confirmation I needed. I drove without a destination, just putting distance between me and everything I thought I knew. I ended up in a cheap motel a few towns over, sitting on the edge of a stiff mattress, staring at the wall. The weight of it all finally hit me. I had no home, no plan, no idea what came next. I had spent so much time building a future around Emma that I never considered what my life would look like without her. And now, here I was, alone, broken, and completely lost. I should have felt free. Instead, I felt hollow. The next few weeks were a blur. I found a small apartment in a city where no one knew me, started therapy, and did my best to function like a normal human. But the betrayal clung to me like a shadow. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her laughing in my face. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach twisted, half expecting another cruel revelation. Trusting people felt impossible. I avoided friendships, kept conversations shallow. I wasn't going to let anyone get that close again. Not after what happened. But slowly, something changed. The anger stopped controlling me. The pain became just another part of my story, not the thing that defined me. I started going to the gym, picking up hobbies I had abandoned during my relationship. I reconnected with old friends, the real ones, the ones who actually gave a damn about me. I had spent so much time drowning in what she did to me that I forgot I still had a life to live. And for the first time in months, I started feeling human again. And then, just as I was beginning to move on, she called. It was a random number, but I recognized her voice the second she spoke. It was shaky, barely above a whisper. "Hey," she said, like nothing had happened, like she hadn't destroyed me. For a moment, I just sat there, gripping my phone, debating whether to hang up or hear her out. Curiosity won. "What do you want, Emma?" My voice was cold, distant. I didn't know her kindness. Not after everything. There was a long pause and then a sob. I should have hung up. I should have let her drown in whatever mess she made for herself. But a part of me, the part that once loved her, needed to know. "It's all gone," she finally choked out. "I lost everything." Hearing her voice again sent a jolt through my system, but not in the way it used to. There was no warmth, no nostalgia, just a cold detachment. "Hey," she said, her voice small, uncertain. I didn't respond right away, just let the silence stretch, waiting for her to explain why she was calling me after everything. When she finally spoke again, her words were shaky, fragile. "I messed up," she admitted. "And now, I lost everything." For a second, I almost thought I misheard her. This was Emma, the woman who had looked me in the eyes and laughed when I found out about her betrayals. The same person who had acted like I was nothing more than a stepping stone in her life. And now she was calling me broken, defeated. What do you want me to say? I asked, my voice calm but distant. That I feel sorry for you? Because I didn't. Not even a little. She let out a shuddering breath. Jake won't talk to me. My boss fired me. The neighbor moved away. And the gay best friend? He blocked me on everything. Every word dripped with regret, but it wasn't the kind that came from hurting me. It was the regret of someone who had played a game and lost. I thought they cared about me, she muttered. I thought I had options. That last part made me laugh. She really had no idea what real loyalty was. I leaned back in my chair, shaking my head. Let me get this straight. You burned every bridge, treated me like garbage, and now that you're alone, I'm supposed to care? I asked, my tone colder than I expected. She sniffled on the other end. I didn't mean for it to be like this, she whispered, but that was the thing she did. She made every choice, lied to my face, and expected it to never catch up to her. Then, the words I knew were coming. I miss you. It hit me how empty those words were coming from her. She didn't miss me. She missed stability, security, someone who actually gave a damn. No, Emma, I said, my voice steady. You miss having someone who loved you, but you never loved me back. There was silence, the kind that carried the weight of truth. I could almost feel her searching for the right thing to say, but for once, she had nothing. I don't know what to do, she admitted finally, and that was the moment I realized how different we had become. She was stuck in the wreckage of her own making, expecting someone else to clean it up. But I wasn't that guy anymore. I wasn't her safety net, her backup plan. That's not my problem, I said, and before she could respond, I ended the call. I didn't hesitate, didn't second guess. I just let go. I sat there for a long time, staring at the blank screen of my phone. I thought I would feel triumphant, or maybe even vindicated. But all I felt was free. Not just from her, but from the anger, the betrayal, the need for closure. Because in that moment I realized I had already won. I moved on. And she was left with nothing but the consequences of her own actions. Some things just can't be undone.